Hi, I wanted to create a quick video explaining how to use chord diagrams as well as guitar tabs. As a guitarist, I think it's very useful as a practicing tool, as well as a gigging musician. Sometimes you may find yourself in a position where you're required to play with a backing band and you need to have some sort of a guide to follow along. Maybe it may be a case of having complex music where it may be difficult to play along from memory, and you just need some sort of a basic guide to keep track of what you are doing. So to begin, at the top of the sheet, what we have are 3 chord diagrams, which represents the C major chord at the 8th fret, the G major chord at the 7th fret, and the F major chord at the 8th fret. Now, with these chord diagrams, the vertical lines represent the strings on your guitar, while the horizontal lines represent your frets. So the leftmost vertical line represents your low E string, and the lines follow the sequence of your guitar up to the 6th line, which represents your high E string at the right side of the diagram. So we would have from left to right low E, A, D, G, B, and high E. So in terms of this particular diagram for C at the 8th fret, the black strip which is across the 8th fret is indicating to us that we should be barring across all 6 strings at the 8th fret, and then we should be placing our second finger at the 9th fret on the G string, followed by our 4th and 3rd finger on the D and the A string respectively. When we have X's over strings in the diagram, it is indicating to us that these strings should be muted and should not be played. If we move down to the tab, similarly to the chord diagram, we have 6 lines which represent our strings on the guitar. So the lowest line on the tab represents our low E string, and again it moves up in the sequence as it would on your guitar. So we would have our low E, our A, our D, our G, our B, and our high E string. The numbers tell us which fret we should be playing the strings on. So in the case of these first 4 notes, they are to be played on the D string at the 5th fret. The slashes indicate that we should be sliding into that position. Slashes placed to the left of your number or your fret number indicate that you are sliding into that position. Slashes placed to the right of the fret number indicate that you are sliding out of that position. Forward slashes indicate that you are sliding up to that fret, and backslashes indicate that you are sliding down to that fret in the case of sliding in to the fret. So in the case of the first note, we'd be sliding into the 5th fret from a lower position, and in the case of the second note, we'd be sliding into the 5th fret from a higher position. Now, as I mentioned earlier, slashes to the right indicate that you are sliding out. So for the 3rd and 4th notes, we are sliding out. For the 3rd, we are sliding out and down to a lower fret. And for the 4th note, we are sliding out and up to a higher fret. In the second measure, we have some bends. So we have the curved arrow going up with full identified at the top. Full is telling us that it is a full pitch bend, which should be a value of a whole note. The second bend is a full pitch bend and release, hence the arrow going back down. And the third bend is a full pitch bend with vibrato. So the wavy line that you see here is indicating that vibrato technique should be applied to the full pitch bend at this position. If the bend is to be anything other than a full pitch bend, it will also be indicated just as it says full. So it will say half, 3/4, or whatever the value of the bend should be. At the next measure, we have our hammer-on and our pull-off. So we have a tie from the 5th to the 7th fret with an H symbol, and that H symbol accompanied with the tie is telling us that it should be a hammer-on from the 5th to the 7th fret, while the P and the tie is telling us that we should be pulling off from the 7th to the 5th fret. Further down, we have some chord sequences, and at the beginning of the measure we have a repeat symbol. So this is our repeat symbol, and this repeat symbol is telling us to play the music as it is provided up to the next repeat symbol, and our next repeat symbol is here. So this is our end repeat symbol. When we get to this point, we go back to the original start repeat symbol and play the entire sequence again. However, in this particular circumstance, we have two different endings, and these endings are noted with our Volta brackets. So the Volta brackets at the top is telling us that we have one ending for the first sequence, which is only played during that first sequence. When we go back to the fourth measure, when we reach the last G chord, we skip over that first ending and we go to our second ending and we play C, C, F, G. So if we were to play this in a musical piece, what we should be playing, obeying all the symbols, would be C, C, G, G, C, C, G, F, C, C, G, G, C, C, F, G. So we'd play the fourth measure, followed by the fifth measure. We go back to the fourth measure, we skip the fifth measure the second time around and go to the sixth measure. So if we go down to our next symbol, this is another form of repeat symbol represented by a slash between the two dots, and this simply tells us to repeat the last measure. So whatever the last measure was, we would simply play it again. In this case, the last measure would have been C, C, F, G. So at the seventh measure, we would then again play C, C, F, G. There's another symbol which looks very similar to the previous one, but instead it has two slashes. And this tells us to repeat the last two measures. So in actuality, what should happen is we should play the sequence of C, C, F, G a total of 4 times for 4 measures. So we'd play C, C, F, G here where it is given, and then we'd play it again 3 more times where we have these repeat symbols. And finally, we have our rest symbols, which indicate periods where we are not expected to play anything. And the first symbol is our whole note rest, which is indicative of a rest which should last a duration of 4 quarter notes in 4/4 timing. The second one is a half note rest, followed by a quarter note rest. Then we have our 8th note rest, our 16th note rest, our 32nd note rest, and our 64th note rest. I hope this has been very useful. I hope you can find some benefit from this and that it makes it easier for you to follow along with any content you may have exposure to. And if it has been useful, I would like you to hit the like button and also subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos, and feel free to comment on anything you would like to see again in the future. Any content that you may be having issues with that you would like to be explained, feel free to leave that comment.